Hi everyone, John Pokerchip Friedberg here with another episode of Stacking Chips, your strategy source for the 2007 World Series of Poker, the Bellagio Cup, and the dozens of other events going on right here in lovely Las Vegas. So I'm coming off of deep finishes in the last two events I played in. Unfortunately, I didn't cash in either of them, but it lasted well beyond the dinner break, only to get knocked out fairly close to the money. Not quite on the bubble, but very close. Let's see, in Saturday's event, I played in the $1,500 no-limit hold'em. There were 3 million players in the field. Now, there were probably like 2,600 or 2,700 players, and I lasted until around 10:30 or 11 p.m. when we were getting close to the bubble, but not quite. I ended up having actually a really good-sized stack after the dinner break. I had about 35,000, which was about 1.5 times average, and then I just got cooler 3 hands in a row. I had an ace-queen against a shorter stack who was all in. We went all in on the flop with 3 spades. I had the ace of spades, so that took like probably 10,000 in chips off of me. The next hand, similar story. And then the last hand I played, I had raised with pocket nines, and it was folded to me on the button. I raised with pocket nines. The big blind is looking at his cards. He says, "Well, they look like aces from that side," and then he flips his cards around. He ends up calling my bet. The flop comes 5, 7, 8 with 2 hearts. I had pocket nines with the 9 of hearts. He checks to me. I bet half my stack, and he goes all in. I have to call right there. He did have aces. He had freaking pocket aces. So, but he actually hadn't really looked at his cards when he said that. So after he looked at them and he saw that they were aces, he didn't really know what to do with them. So that was sort of another cooler hand for me. And then yesterday's event was the $1,500 mix hold'em event, which I wasn't really ever doing that great in, but I was above average for most of the time. But the problem with that tournament is the blinds in the limit half of the event go up much faster than the blinds in the no limit section, or the no limit portion of it. So, 6 hours into it, you're playing like 400 and 800 blinds in limit, but you're still playing $2 and $300 blinds in no limit. So they try to balance it out, but I think the limit portion goes up too fast. Long story short, again, I made it very deep in that. We started at 5 p.m. yesterday. I lasted until around 2:30, and they were cutting us off at 3 to go on to day 2. My last hand was limit hold'em, and there was a raise and a call. I think the blinds were around 3 and 600. There was a raise of 12 and a call before it got to me. I raised 18 with pocket kings on the button. Call. Long story short, one of the guys had ace 9 on a 9 high flop. We went all in on the flop. Of course, ace came on the turn to knock me out of that tournament. But there's a couple hands that I want to talk about. One from yesterday's event, the $1,500 mix hold'em, and one from Saturday's event, the $1,500 no limit hold'em. Now, both of these were situations where my opponent tried to bluff me out of a pot, and I picked them off each time. So I want to talk a little bit about the moves that were made and why I decided to call, and how I knew that, well, I didn't really know, but why I assumed they were bluffing and ultimately picked them off in their bluffs. The first one happened on Saturday in the $1,500 no limit hold'em. The blinds were $200 and $400 with a $50 ante, and it was folded I wasn't a big blind with a queen 9, offsuit queen 9, both red though. It was folded around to the small blind, who just calls 400 from the small blind. I looked down at the queen 9, so I just checked my option. So now there's 800 plus 10 way, so there's $1,300 in the pot now because of the $50 ante times 10 plus the 4 and the 4 from the blinds. The flop comes 10, 10, 9 with the 10, 9 of clubs and another, I guess, 10 of spades. And the small blind checks. I make a small bet here. I like my hand. I'm pretty sure I have the best hand. So I just bet out 500, which is fairly small relative to the pot size, but I figured I would probably just take it down right there or see where my opponent was at. So I bet 500. He raises to 1,300. Now, I'm certain that I have the best hand here because I know he doesn't have a 10. He's not going to play a 10 that way. So there's a range of hands that I put him on, and that is either a 9, in which case he most likely didn't have king 9 or ace 9, or he probably would have raised pre-flop. He either had a straight draw where maybe he had 8 jack, maybe he had jack queen, maybe he had 7 8. Any of those would be open-ended straight draws. Or he could have had a smaller pair, in which case I also didn't think he had that because, again, he would have probably raised pre-flop. So anyway, he check raised me to 13. and to 1,300. At the time, he and I were both pretty deep stacks. I had around 20,000. He had also around 20,000. I thought about re-raising here simply because I was certain that I had the best hand, but I didn't want to give him the option to come over the top again and then have to force me to a decision. So I just chose to call the 1,300 since I did have position on him. I wanted to see what the turn came. If the turn came a scary card like, say, Queen of Clubs, and then he bets out again, I probably fold my hand. But I wanted to see, actually Queen might not have been such a bad card, but if it was another straight card that also put a flush out there, I wouldn't have liked my hand so much anymore. So I figured I would see the turn before I decided what to do. Well, the turn comes another 10. So now there's 10, 10, 10, 9 on the board. Now I'm certain that I have the best hand, but I want to see what my opponent does, because I figure, at the very worst case here, he also has a 9 and we're going to split the pot. So anyway, on the turn there's 10, 10, 10, 9. Now he checks to me. So I go ahead and check also, trying to look like I'm on a flush draw, hoping that he bets out on the river and I can call with my 10s full of 9s. Anyway, so the river comes a fourth 10. So now the board reads 10, 10, 10, 10, 9. Suddenly, I no longer have 10s full of 9s. I have 4 10s with a queen kicker. So if he has any card in his hand higher than a queen, then I'm dead in the hand. So, but again though, I didn't think he had a card higher than queen. So he bets out 2,500, which is fairly big size. It's a big bet relative to the pot size. It's almost a pot size bet. I'm thinking about it for a little while. I figured he either had a flush draw, but not the ace high, because he would have raised pre-flop with an ace. I was thinking about all the hands he could have had. Ultimately, I put him on a jack queen, to where he flopped open-ended. The turn was a brick for him, and obviously the river was a brick. So I figured at the very, very worst, I was going to split the pot with him. But I was certain he didn't have I was just very certain he didn't have an ace or a king to beat my queen high. So he had bet 2,500. I call, and he says, I'm playing the board, and he turns over pocket fours. So I guess a couple of the reasons that I called that hand were, I've sort of explained them already, but first of all, the only hand that beats me there is him having an ace in his hand or him having a king. And in order for him to have one of those two hands, he probably would have raised pre-flop. It's just the way the table was playing out, that is a fairly aggressive player. I really didn't think he was going to slow play any kind of ace pre-flop, and I couldn't think of any hand that he would check raise me with on the flop that had a king in his hand. So again, I felt that my queen high was the best hand, and also because he made such a big bet relative to the pot, I felt like he was just trying to steal it from me, so I called and won. The next bluff that I picked off was yesterday. Well, the next sort of big pot bluff that I picked off was yesterday when I was in the big blind in the no-limit portion of the tournament. We were playing 1 in 200 blinds. So I had a $200 big blind in with queen 5 offsuit, but the queen of diamonds. There's 5 limpers around the pot, and the flop comes king 10 7 with all diamonds. Again, I had the queen of diamonds, 5 of spades. And anyway, it's checked all the way around on the flop. Turn comes a black queen. So right now I think I might have the best hand. Somebody might have a king, but I thought it would be a good bet for me here out of the blind, and I felt that if I got raised I could get off the hand. If I got called it was probably by the ace of diamonds, but I just wanted to see where I was at because I did have the second nut flush draw with second pair. I wanted to see where I was at. And again, I had a decent amount of chips at this point. I had about 10,000 in chips playing 1 in 200 blinds. So there's about 1,200 in the pot. I bet out 700 to see where I'm at. I get one caller, everyone else folds. The river bricks off. It's like a 3 or something, but it's not a diamond, so the flush misses. I check. My opponent instantly bets 2,200, almost as if he had the chips in his hand already. And I thought about it for a long time. I thought about it for probably about 2 minutes, when ultimately I decided that if he had a king in his hand, he probably would have bet the flop or made a move on the turn, and his bet just seemed very, or if he had a flush, same thing. The bet that he made on the river, 2,200 on a pot that was, not much bigger than that, it just seemed very suspicious to me. It didn't seem like a value bet. It just seemed like a bluff. And so I called with the queen with no kicker, and sure enough, he turned over ace-10 with the ace of diamonds, and he either had a pair of tens or not, I don't remember. I think he just had ace-high, though, but he misses flush, so I picked that bluff off. Anyway, so today is the $1,500 pot limit Omaha high-low split game, which is a different game. I don't think there's ever been an 8 or better pot limit Omaha tournament in the World Series, so it'll be fun. It'll be a crapshoot. People will be busting out very quickly, I think, but I'm going to play in it. Should be fun. We start at 5 o'clock today. But that said, I want to bring my guest on the show. He had a huge year last year, starting out at the Bellagio Cup, actually winning one of the preliminary events and then going on to winning the main event for just under $1 million. He's had a few other cashes this year, and he just finished 5th place in the Heads Up Championship at the World Series this year. So that said, let's bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, Shannon Shorr. Shannon, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks,
glad to have you here. So 2006 was a huge year for you. You came out almost out of nowhere. One thing I didn't mention in my intro with you was that you also had, I think, a 4th place finish in the Aussie Millions. Right, televised event. Then you came out to the Bellagio Cup. You won one of the preliminary events for 100 and something thousand. Then you went on to win the main event for another like 960,000. And then, of course, you've just been doing very well since then.
Yep, got my start in Australia. I was still 20, actually, so I couldn't play in the States. I won that seat on Party Poker. Then finally turned 21 in June and basically hit the U.S. circuit, I guess, and got my start at Bellagio Cup.
So before going down to Australia, you said you won your seat on Party. So were you a long-time online player before coming into the live scene?
I was. I'd been playing online for probably maybe 18 months or so. And I was actually only a winner for about 7 months before. Like, I was a long-time losing player online. So I turned it around, though, and started beating up the sit-and-goes and then won that Aussie Millions satellite and headed down there.
So it seems like, I mean, you're an online player, only winning, the most recent 7 months of that where you were a profitable player.
Right.
You go down to Australia, play in a major event with many of the big-name pros. You final table it. Then you come onto the live scene. You win 2 events at Bellagio Cup. You continue to do well. How is it that you've just come onto the live scene and had so much success early?
I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that. Online, I really started to study the game and just I played a lot of multi-table tournaments online too. And I just knew what to do in certain spots, and as long as you're playing like fundamental poker, there's not that much of a difference, I don't think, between live and online. And I don't know. I started off when I first started playing the live circuit. I was just super aggressive. Like anyone who saw me play at the Aussie Millions, I was just uber aggressive. It was unbelievable. But now I play a little different style, but it's still working. I don't know.
So when you come into with your online background, you come into a live tournament. Are you mostly playing your hands and you're playing situations, or are you playing your opponents?
I mix it up. The way I approach tournaments is I try to, for the most part, I just avoid the good players. I think, if a good player opens a pot and I have ace-jack, even ace-queen sometimes, in position I'll play ace-queen, but those aren't the players. There's too many weak spots at the table to be attacking the bad players. So I'll call with very marginal hands against bad players in position and try to win pots there.
That sounds like a good strategy, because there's so many, even in these big buy-in tournaments, there's so many weak players that sneak in through satellites, or they just have a lot of money that they buy themselves in. I wonder where the hell a lot of these guys get their money from.
For sure.
But thankfully they get it from somewhere, because they're paying some people's bills, like Mr. Shorr's over here. But so you went very deep a few days ago in the Heads Up event, the $5,000 World Championship of Heads Up Poker at the World Series, finishing 5th place. I think you ended up going out against Vanessa Selps, is that right?
That's correct.
So let's talk about your experience in the Heads Up match. How many matches did you play, and who did you play against, and how was that for you?
I believe I was 6-1 overall. I won 6 matches. I wasn't lucky enough to draw the bye, so I had to play the first round. The first round I played an unknown Danish guy who's a great player. He's a cash game player, so that wasn't an easy match. He had me down about 15 to 5,000, and I won that. Then I went on and hated to see that I was playing J.C. Tran in the second round, especially since he had a bye and he was fresh. So I played him, and we had what had to be like one of the most epic matches of the tournament. Like, we battled for a long time, and it went back and forth, and he played great, didn't give anything away. So I beat him, and then I beat the kid Noah Boken from Europe. He's a great player. And he actually had me about 11-1 in chips, and I got lucky to come back there.
Wow.
Day 2, I guess we were in the money then, in the round of 64 maybe. Yeah, and I played the cash game player named Matt Giannetti, who severely outplayed me, and I was lucky to survive. I got on with Jack 6 of hearts against Ace Rag and won that pot, but I didn't deserve to move on like he did. He really outplayed me. But I won that and moved on and played Alex Bolleton, beat him, and then beat Carmel Petresco to move to round of 8. And then I played Vanessa Selpst on day 3. And I really had the vision of the bracelet. I thought I was going to get there, but Vanessa she outplayed me too. She played perfect.
She's a crazy player.
Yeah,
she gambles a lot.
Yeah, she played really aggressive. I sat back. I knew that coming in. I knew she was going to play super aggressive. So I sat back and tried to trap a few times, and it just didn't work out. And she beat me probably 75% of the pots. So
do you play much heads-up poker? Either in sit and goes or...
No, I don't actually. That's why I'm surprised. I actually had some success in a heads up in Barcelona too last year, which it surprised me because I don't play heads up. I think with my tournament history though, I have a good idea how to put pressure without putting all my chips in the middle, and I think that's a big key in heads up.
I got a question for you. There's one situation that I face when I play heads up a lot that I enjoy playing heads up. It's not the biggest strength of my game. Maybe with the exception of being heads up at a final table when you've whittled down to 2 players and then you're in the zone or whatnot. But
right.
Just playing heads up regularly, the one situation that I encounter a lot that I just don't know what to do is when you have, say, a straight draw or a flush draw, but you don't have overcards. So let's say you have a 4-5 of diamonds, for example, and the flop comes, I don't know, big cards, 10 Jack Queen with a couple of diamonds. Right. What do you think the best way to play a hand like that is? Now, of course, I'm not telling you any pre-flop action, but just generally speaking, do you like to be the aggressor there? Do you like to call there?
I think it's just like any form of poker. You just have to mix it up. Sometimes if it's a raise pot and I defend with 5-4 diamonds, I may lead out at that flop. I may check raise. I may check call. I don't know. I think you just got to keep them on their toes. I think in tournament heads up poker though, you don't want to put all your chips at risk, especially if you only have you're only 33% or whatever to win with the flush draw. So I don't know. I think playing a little more passively may be the key in tournament heads up poker.
It just the flopping those hands is great. The problem is when you break off again on the turn,
right.
And your opponent has position on you, or even sometimes when he doesn't, you're on the button, and then you break off on the river. You're sitting there with 5 high. The only way you can win is to bet the pot, or to raise if your opponent bets, and it's such a tricky situation to be in.
Yeah.
And I find that's probably the one spot where I lose the most chips, where I miss a draw on the river. I know I can't win the pot because I have 5 high, but I feel obligated to bet anyway.
Right. Yeah. Heads up's a different animal. There's a lot of psychology that goes in there. The cards, to an extent, almost don't matter sometimes.
All right. So you're actually today you'll be in day 2 of the $1,500 mixed hold'em tournament, half limit, half no limit. That I was just telling our guest earlier or our audience earlier that I got knocked out about 2:30 last night, about 30 minutes before we quit. But what's been your experience in that tournament so far? What do you think of the structure?
Well, the limit, as you could tell, plays a lot bigger than the no limit. So it's probably a 75% limit tournament and 25 no limit. I've actually I never was really a big limit fan. I have a little bit of a limit hold'em history. I played some 30-60 and stuff as I was grinding my way up. But the limit played much bigger, and I don't know. I think I've got a handle. I read a little bit about limit prior to this World Series to catch up. I hadn't played in a year, and did decent in the 5K limit hold'em event, and I think I've got a pretty good handle on how to play the limit hold'em.
Do you have chips going into day 2?
No, unfortunately, I have 5,900. Average is around 18,000.
And did you ever have a stack?
I did. Not to bemoan my luck or anything, because I got really lucky in the heads up, but I actually could be in the top 5 in chips. With 30 minutes left, I lost. About 35 minutes left, I lost a huge limit pot with aces versus king 5 offsuit. And then in No Limit, the guy shoved 6,800 into me from the small blind at 2,400, and I called with ace queen, and he had queen jack, and it came 8, 9, 10 eventually.
Oh,
so
I hate that.
That basically crippled me, but it happens. You know, it all evens out.
So let's see. We're getting close to the main event here in the World Series. I think this is today starts event number 42, if I have the numbers right, out of 55, and they're running 1 and 2 a day.
Right.
So what's your plan for the rest of the World Series?
I'm going to keep playing basically all the Hold'em bracelet events. I said I was going to play some Omaha 8 and stud, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So just keep trying to put myself in a position to win a bracelet, because that's, I guess, #1 goal in poker right now.
And then after the World Series, will we see you in many of the WPT events?
Yeah, I'm going to keep traveling the circuit. I guess LA is the next thing, but I guess there's like a month off before anything's really going on.
There's the Bellagio Cup in July right afterwards, and then Bicycle Club.
Right. Oh yeah.
After that in LA.
I don't know. Just probably play all the tournaments, I guess.
All right. Well, I wish you the best in certainly today's event and the rest of the World Series, and would love to see you do a repeat in the Bellagio Cup this year.
Thank you. Me too.
So best of luck, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, John.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Stacking Chips. Make sure to tune in tomorrow and every day throughout the World Series for more strategy talk, discussions, interviews, and more right here on Card Player TV. And keep those emails coming in to stackingchips@cardplayer.com. From John Poker Trip Friedberg
and Shannon Shorr,
we're out of here. Good luck, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.